Mad Dog Chris Russo
Yes.
in the house as well. Brian Whitnors, hello in lovely Cleveland. And then Stephen A., good morning to you.
First of all, good morning to Wendy, looking like a presidential candidate. Good morning to my man Doggy, who was kind enough to come in on this Memorial Day. Him working 2 days a week on First Take the Miracle. The work ethic is to be applauded. Absolutely. Shay, we gonna look out for you because we know that the voice is compromised, Shay. We got your back. But I don't want to get Frank Sinatra on everybody this morning. Of course, happy Veterans Day, the whole bit, happy Memorial Day, rather. The love to the soldiers and everybody that served this country. Let me say this real quickly. New York, tonight, I'm not going to go Frank Sinatra on you, but I am going to say, start spreading the news. We're winning tonight. We're bringing our brooms. Because in Cleveland, it's a mess. And that's all I wanted to say to start the show. Let's go.
All right, perfect. I'm sure we'll elaborate on that later
sure we will.
on. In the meantime, let's start in the Western Conference Finals because the Spurs, they started fast in Game 4 and they never really slowed down. Victor Wembanyama had 33 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists to go along with his 3 blocks. San Antonio played fast. They kept the Thunder in check for the majority of the game, blowing them out in San Antonio, 103-82 to even the series at 2 games apiece. Here's Victor Wembanyama after the big win.
We didn't do nothing unexpected, but the truth is that we had never been in this kind of situation before. It was our first deficit, and we just responded, but it was nothing amazing. It wasn't magic. We just did what we needed to do.
They just punched us in our face early. It's 2 games in a row. They've come out the aggressors. Last game we were able to course correct. Tonight, we just didn't do so.
All right, what statement did the Spurs make last night, Stephen A. Smith?
Not really much of a statement as far as I'm concerned. And the reason I say that is because of how awful Oklahoma City looked. I mean, you want to give credit where credit is due, that's fine. You want to sit up there and say it was a product of their defense, which is pretty elite, that's fine. I get that part. But the point is, we're not going to see Oklahoma City shoot 15% from three-point range too often. I saw a few wide open shots that they just could not make. It just wasn't going down. It was one of those days, it was evident early. Look at how wide open Chet Holmgren was there. It barely touched the rim. It was as if they had no legs whatsoever. Stephon Castle was a pest, no doubt about that, and you can point to the defense that he played on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but we all know what this brother can do. The reality of the situation is that when you look at San Antonio, it was a must-win situation. It was a form of desperation. They knew there was no way in hell they could go down 3-1, and they came out and played like that. Oklahoma City, from start to finish, played like a team that came and handled their business in Game 3. We did what we came to do, which was reclaim home court advantage. We good. And they played like it with no sense of urgency whatsoever. And that is why I'm not thinking about this as a statement. A statement game could potentially be Game 5. But when I looked at Game 4, the fact that OKC had won Game 3, they played devoid of any kind of urgency whatsoever from start to finish. And that's why I didn't walk away feeling that way about this.
Now, I agree with you 100%, Steve. 6 for 33 from 3. They're going to do better than that in Game 4. Unless you buy the idea that San Antonio blowing that 15-0 lead early in Game 3, that as a youth on a young team down 2-1, they would collapse. Unless you bought that, you cannot be totally surprised that this series is 2-2. I forget what I think all of us had OKC in 7. So if you had OKC in 7, the Spurs were going to have to win Game 4 because they were losing 3-1. They're not going to get to a 7th game. So to me, I'm not that surprised either. The one thing I would say, I'd be a little worried right now about OKC's injuries. They got to have 2 of these. I mean, they're losing 2 guys here. Sooner or later, Williams is going to have to play a game and play more than 7 minutes. I mean, sooner or later, A.J. Mitchell's out. That's a lot. That's a lot of problems they have. I mean, you can't. I know they got a lot of guys and they play depth and everything else, but losing 2 of their top 5, 6 guys, that's a lot to handle. I still think they're going to win a series. I think Saturday night at 8 o'clock is going to be for the NBA championship. I think Saturday night, 8 o'clock in Oklahoma City at 3-3, the winner of that game. Now, Steve's going to disagree. Brian might disagree. He's in Cleveland. I think the winner of that game wins the NBA title, and I think that will be must, as Tirico said last night, cancel all plans. If you're a sports fan, that is must-see TV Saturday night at 8 o'clock. That's where I am right now with this series.
Indy.
Dog, the Knicks have just had the greatest, most impressive 10-game run in like recent NBA history. They're crushing teams. And you're saying the NBA championship is being determined in that other series?
Blasphemy.
Okay, I just
Blasphemy.
want to acknowledge that. All right. I mean, I agree the Knicks will be the underdog, but I'm not handing anybody anything. Now, I want to acknowledge, Shay, that the Spurs have continued to impress me. They have had moderate adversity in all 3 rounds. First round, Victor gets a concussion, misses the game. They lose leverage up in that series. They come back. Last round, Victor gets ejected from that game. They lose home court advantage, go up to Minnesota and re-establish control. This series, they fall down 2-1. And in all 3 of those situations, they have not looked like a team going through their first playoffs. They have looked like a poised team. They played with excellent force last night. But they didn't play that great as a team. Victor played beautifully. I loved watching him summon some energy after I didn't think he had high energy in game 3. But the story of the NBA playoffs right now, as Doggy said, is the Thunder's injuries. Because while the Thunder have incredible depth, and while they have shown depth, the one spot where they're vulnerable is in that offensive ball handling creation role. That is where they're a little bit soft. And that is where these injuries have hit them. They were terrible on offense last night. And if you look at the regular season, when both A.J. Mitchell and Jalen Williams didn't play, that's when they were weak. They overcame one of them being out. They played 21 games without both of them this season. They're 11-10 in those games. Now, you could throw a handful of asterisks on there because there were some games where they were resting their front line. There was a couple of those games in there where Shea was also out. But bottom line, when they are missing 2 of their 3 offensive creators, their offense ain't the same. Combined with the fact that the Spurs made an adjustment last night. One of the most important statistics I want to point out from last night, Shea, is what happened to Alex Caruso. Alex Caruso didn't have a bad shooting night. He had a no shooting night. He took 1 shot. This guy has been shooting 60% in this series from 3. They took the basketball out of his hands because instead of guarding the interior and having Wembanyama stay in the paint and ignore Caruso, they switched it up and had more conventional defense and stuck to the shooters. So that transition plus the weaker offensive creation, I think puts the Thunder in a danger zone right now.
Well, they're clearly in a danger zone because they're going up against a San Antonio Spurs team that's really, really good. There's no question. There's no question about that. I've often wondered why Wembanyama hasn't been put at the 3. Forget him at the 5, Wendy. How about putting him at the 3 and putting another big body up in there to absorb some of the physicality so he could be out on the perimeter doing his thing, or when he's in the interior, he can pick and choose when he picks his spots and go from there. I just think that you do that because he's a slim, slighter frame, and you got to think along those lines. But there's no question that San Antonio could win this series. This is a pick-em series, particularly at this point due to the bevy of injuries. But I also think about the fact that San Antonio, we looked at Stephon Castle, as much of a rough rider as he is, and he's a tough one right there. That brother's special, and I like him a lot. But he had 20 turnovers in the first 2 games. De'Aaron Fox comes back for game 3, okay? Dylan Harper came back for game 3. And you still beat him. So that shows you what Oklahoma City is capable of. And I know that the urgency of the moment, game 5, it's everything. There's no question about that. But I think we had San Antonio losing this series in 7 games for a reason, because we saw a champion answer like a champion in game 3. That's what we saw. And now you've got another moment, key moment for them, because it's game 5 for that series. Because it's going to be real interesting to see what happens. But I don't place much emphasis on yesterday. San Antonio had a 16-0 run in the first quarter and never looked back. OKC didn't come to play because they came to play in game 3 and they said we handled our business. And I keep leaning on what I experienced last year, Doggy and Wendy, from the standpoint that we're covering the NBA, the Western Conference Finals. And I believe it was game 3. Minnesota won by like 40. They were up like 44 or whatever. And Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Shea Butter, walked to the sidelines laughing, looking at the crowd in Minnesota, laughing. Like, okay, we'll see y'all. We'll see you next game. There was not a concern at all because they knew what they were capable of. If I had not seen that at all in this series, I would be worried. But I saw it in game 3. I saw them do that in game 3. And if they did it once, they can do it again. They can be beat, no doubt, but there's a reason they're the champions.